Pikachu! Stamina Battle!
Hello, one and all, and welcome to the debut of my new show, Butting Heads, a review show where we take a look at two or more things, compare and contrast the strengths of each one, and give a verdict on which one is the best. Today's episode is on the best video game movies as of the creation of this video: Pokemon, Detective Pikachu from 2019, and Sonic the Hedgehog from 2020. We'll be evaluating different aspects of the films, and comparing how each film handles in each respective department. I'm a fan of both Sonic the Hedgehog and a former fan of Pokemon, so I fit squarely into the camp that would find both these films the most enjoyable. So without further ado, let's begin. Also, spoiler warning for both of these films.
Round 1!
It's only natural that we start with the story of these movies, as it's not only quintessential in film as a medium, but it's also an issue prevalent within most video game movies. The way information is delivered in a game is radically different than how it's presented in film, so it's the biggest focal point by default. I'll start with Detective Pikachu since it's easier to summarize and review, and also I have a lot to say about it. The main character, Tim, played by Justice Smith, discovers one day that his father died after Mewtwo broke free from captivity in a Pokemon lab. Tim is, at first, in disbelief and begins investigating the case in hopes that his father is actually alive and that he can find him. Upon entering his father's apartment, he finds his partner Pokemon, a Pikachu with a hat, voiced by Ryan Reynolds. He convinces Tim that his father is still alive, and not long after, Tim releases some gas trapped in a vial that makes Pokemon lose control and go feral. Tim and Pikachu embark on a journey to discover the origin of this noxious gas, which is key to discovering the whereabouts of Tim's dad and what exactly happened to him, with it at the end being revealed that the super generous business guy was actually the bad guy, and that Tim's dad was actually Ryan Reynolds, who was in the Pikachu. That means only one thing.
Mixed race couple? Cringe!
A pretty simple plot in hindsight, but it works. I definitely do like the greater emphasis on mystery in this movie that most, if not all, main series Pokemon games have been really missing, but I think that's just about the best thing I can say about it. There's actually a lot wrong with this story. For starters, the story is incredibly derivative of a lot of other themes from different other Pokemon games, such as the villain's belief that Pokemon are superior being taken straight from Team Plasma of Gen 5, and the beliefs in the creation of a new world being sculpted by one person was taken right from Gen 6. The story falls squarely in between being its own thing and being an adaptation of Pokemon as a franchise that it ends up fulfilling none of these goals. In terms of being an adaptation, it's really half-hearted. Where are the gyms, items, the region, the champion, the Elite Four, HMs? There's a lot of things that weren't included from the games into this film to make the world building just that much better, making it just shy of being perfect, and these are all staples that have been established since Red and Green. People like to tout how this movie was so faithful to Pokemon when that really only equates to the crew skimming through Pokedex entries on Bulbapedia. Nothing in this movie is particularly mind-blowing that they included besides the Pokemon themselves, which I was happy to see that they included more than just Gen 1 Pokemon, because that would have been the easiest cop-out imaginable. People have really low expectations for what they consider faithfulness through these movies, though the original Mario Bros. Film probably didn't help with that. If it's trying to be its own thing, it's way too derivative of other Pokemon stories to give its narrative its own identity besides the Pokemon movie. Really, this movie only really succeeds at being a good reimagining of the story of the Detective Pikachu game. Yes, you heard me right, Detective Pikachu was a game before it was a movie, which seems to be a little detail that gets conveniently forgotten more as time passes. I think that's really where the main issue stems from though, as since the game itself is just kind of a subpar Pokemon spin-off, the movie itself gets bogged down by the limitations set by it being an adaptation of it specifically. If you wanted to make a Pokemon movie, Detective Pikachu would probably be one of the worst ones to pick if you wanted to actively showcase what Pokemon is about, because besides from the occasional battle, there isn't much here that really tells you what the games are about. It works just as well as if you made a Sonic movie based on Sonic Shuffle, or Sonic Riders. That just doesn't work. Another big issue is the total tonal shift in the movie, turning the lighthearted Pokemon games that only really get surprisingly deep at certain sections into this melancholy film noir wannabe, and it really doesn't fit the tone of the series at all. Like I said, there are points where Pokemon can get pretty dark, particularly in certain Pokedex entries, Lavender Town, and especially in stuff like the manga and Origins anime, but for the most part, it's pretty lighthearted and fun, especially in the game the movie is supposedly based on. It'd be like if you wanted to make a movie based on Persona 4 and you just made it a dramatic film noir that's more in line with the SMT series rather than Persona 4 itself. It just comes off as puzzling and feels like the director wanted to give the movie a bigger set of balls than it really deserved. Like, there's this scene where Tim breaks down about not being able to see his father more when he had the chance, and it's kind of this really uncomfortable scene of him being really emotional and stuff, and it feels so out of place in something that's supposed to be based on Pokemon. It'd be like if, in Illumination's Mario Bros. Movie, Mario suddenly just broke down because he never knew his real parents or something like that. It just feels really out of left field, even for this drab film. There's also a couple of other smaller issues I have with the film, such as the Pokemon theme being shoehorned in twice just to really grab the parents' nostalgia by the balls. I remember someone stating that the inclusion of the Green Hill theme in Sonic felt contrived when it made a lot of sense in that movie, with the piano rendition playing to establish that a resolution has been met, and that things are relatively back to normal. This movie not only includes it during a television broadcast, but also when Pikachu is lamenting during a third act breakup, which people were like, whoa, they said the thing from the cartoon I watched. It's cute, and makes me think of times when I was a kid and ignorant of the world around me. When it comes off as contrived and forced in and of itself. I mean, it's a third act breakup, you should be singing a song more fitting of the situation. Just sing Heartbeat Heartbreak like a normal person! Speaking of which, a third act breakup. Dear Lord. Listen, people knock down Sonic's movie for being very reminiscent of other films that feature cartoon characters crossing over into the real world, but at least that movie didn't have the same predictable, tired trope of the main character splitting up after a disagreement at the beginning of a third act. God, was I hoping that this movie was gonna avoid that trope, but not only did they do it exactly as I expected, but it doesn't even really come off as believable. Pikachu's reasonings for leaving just feels like some angsty teen girl blaming herself for why her friends get bullied or something. It just really makes no sense. There's a couple of odd leaps in realism, such as how Pikachu's Electro Ball makes a balloon explode. How? And also how the billionaire Big Shot's hologram technology can apparently make a hologram that reveals new evidence not present in police footage when he verbatim states that the hologram was based on police footage. That's not how things work. A big thing that people pointed out when the Sonic movie released was how there was a fart joke, which people harped on because, you know, they expected so much from what they perceived to be a kid's film. But not only does it transition into a nice reference to Sonic's love for chili dogs, but I feel it was pulled off way better than the joke in Detective Pikachu where they literally state that Pikachu pissed himself.
This is very exciting. Are you excited?
Yeah.
I think he just peed a little.
So,
Oh, no, that's me. That was me.
Speaking of Sonic though, Sonic the Hedgehog story was perfect for what it sought out to achieve. The games themselves up until Sonic Adventure had pretty simplistic plots that couldn't be carried over an entire 90-minute movie. So rather than retelling the story of the original 3 games or something, they reimagined the origins of Sonic and create a whole new idea with the character, and they pulled it off incredibly well. Rather than using the mess that is the official Sonic Bible, they instead chose to make Sonic's origin reside in him being a free spirit born with the ability to run fast, with a mother figure of sorts named Longclaw. Sonic enters the real world through the use of magical rings given to him, and is advised to avoid those who seek to use him for his powers, and to stay out of harm's way, giving a nice fitting reason for him to be on Earth. It definitely helps that Sonic has interacted with humans in games before, since Sonic Adventure actually. As expected, Sonic roams the Earth looking for something interesting to do, while still keeping his distance and gravitating towards Tom Wachowski and his wife Maddie, played by James Marsden and Tika Sumpter respectively.
Mixed race couple?
Nice.
Sonic takes a liking to Tom, no doubt thanks to his friendly demeanor and helpfulness with the residents of Green Hill, but Sonic's loneliness begins to wear on him, and during a rush of emotions, he causes a large-scale blackout, which brings the attention of the federal government. They enlist the help of Dr. Robotnik, the astute genius, to investigate the origins of the blackout. Tom discovers Sonic, leading to a small scuffle, resulting in Sonic dropping his rings at the top of the Trans-America building in San Francisco, with Robotnik soon discovering Sonic as well and trying to capture him for scientific research. Of course, this means that Sonic and Tom embark on a fun, lighthearted adventure across the country, evading Robotnik's pursuit and trying to get Sonic to somewhere safe, ending with a climactic battle between the hero and villain that is incredibly similar to the very first boss from Sonic 1, which is a neat detail that I love. Overall, while the story is pretty simplistic and by no means a deep philosophical narrative, it identifies its objective, that being to reimagine everything present in Sonic the Hedgehog at its core, and adapting it to be suitable for a feature-length film. Sonic the Hedgehog encompasses the word fun in its movie, and it's just a nice, light-hearted adventure that can be summed up as such. There's no overly complicated plot or plot holes, and the film surprisingly stays away from tired tropes and cliches that many similar films fall into. It's just a really fun film from beginning to end. There are a few product placements, and while I may be in the small minority here, but I actually liked them a lot and welcomed them with open arms. They were done with such little tact and grace that I actually found them downright funny, and that validates their inclusion to me. Plus, that's only for the Olive Garden and Zillow ones. There was an optical illusions reference that no one mentioned in their big Sonic Movie Thoughts video because it was delivered so well through Robotnik's dialogue. Speaking of Robotnik, though.
Round 2.
A story needs some characters to carry the narrative along, and how do these films fare? Well, Sonic the Hedgehog's characters are by no means deep or intricate or anything, but they do work well for the type of story that the film was really going for, and really adds to the fun that the film offers. Tom Wachowski is a kind, typical good-hearted main character with just a pinch of goofiness and eccentricity, about as much as probably the average person. I also find it funny how nonchalant and relaxed he is when he's supposed to enforce the law. But then again...
Time for me to abuse the power entrusted to me.
SMPD! Pending background check. Pause in the air!
Sonic himself, I think, had his characterization changed perfectly to fit the new storyline of the movie. Sonic acts a tad more naive and childish and starts the film more fearful of Robotnik's robots. But this is because Sonic is clearly much younger than the Sonic we've come to know from the video games, and they clearly took this into account when writing his character, while still keeping his personality recognizable. For example, Sonic has a habit of giving characters in the movie nicknames, such as Tom and Maddie being Donut Lord and Pretzel Lady, as well as Robotnik being named Eggman by Sonic for his egg-shaped robots. This trait is something that Sonic is known to have in a couple of his games as well, such as in Sonic Adventure where he calls Robotnik Eggman, and in Sonic Unleashed where he nicknames Light Guy a Chip. So there's a clear layer of cohesion between movie Sonic and Sonic from the games. Other supporting characters are pretty nice too. I loved Agent Stone for how caring and well-meaning he is, and serves as a good counterbalance to Robotnik's arrogant narcissism. Speaking of Robotnik, he is the clear show stealer, and you didn't need me to tell you that. Everyone has gone on and on about how great his character is, and I 100% agree. During my first viewing, I liked him enough, but it wasn't until my second that I really grew to love how well crafted the writers made his character. He's essentially that one nerd from high school who tells a bully, "You better watch your back, cause one day you're gonna be making my coffee when I'm on my way to an important business meeting." And he usually gets shoved into a locker right afterwards, but Robotnik acts like that kid if he actually stayed that arrogant until adulthood, and he's one of those villains that's both fun to follow, but also so likable that it makes it all better to witness their fall. Jim Carrey was perfect for the role, as he not only captures both Robotnik's calculated side, but his goofy side as well. It's great. Carrey also makes the comedic lines said by Robotnik just that funnier.
Ooh, look what came out of my egg sack.
I was spitting out formulas while you were still spitting up formula.
I was breastfed, actually.
Nice.
Carrey's performance carries the film to all new heights and really completes what the film wants to accomplish. So, Detective Pikachu. Where do I even begin? I suppose I should start with the absolute piece of cardboard that is Tim Goodman. I'll say it right now, he basically has no character or personality whatsoever. Tim portrays no emotion whatsoever, and he always kinda talks in this kinda low tone of voice that makes it sound like he's in class or something. And whenever Tim needs to show some sort of emotion, he tends to overact to compensate or something. They try to make Tim this kinda everyman main character that the audience can relate to, but he's so dull that they completely fail. No disrespect to Justice Smith, Tim's actor. I'm sure he's done better work in other films. Honestly, it's likely that he was just given poor direction in this film or something, as many other characters have their own set of problems as well. Tim does have this scene, though.
I'm actually pretty good at being alone at night.
Yep, that's more than other characters offer. How about the titular character himself, though, Detective Pikachu? Well, I feel really mixed on Pikachu. While he's the best character in the film and is the most entertaining character to watch aside from Mr. Mime, that is, he doesn't hold a candle to how charismatic and funny Sonic is. Sure, Pikachu says a lot of one-liners and makes many a comment, but his character doesn't really evolve past just being a cute, quotable character. He just kinda says stuff. Sometimes it's funny, but it never feels so much like a character saying it as much as a 3D model saying it to entertain the audience. Kinda like how a doll has a voice box. The doll can say funny things, but it still feels devoid of life. You get what I mean? The characterization is pretty amateur and could have used some more development and time in the oven. I find it odd because not only is this issue prevalent throughout the film, but the film itself expects you to become attached to him, because it tries to have this emotional scene with Pikachu where he gets pelted by a rock that's probably the size of my fist, and somehow almost dies from it? Huh? And they try to set it up as if the audience is supposed to really care about Pikachu as a character, but all he is basically a wisecracking animal sidekick. It feels like they expect full investment from the audience for just doing the smallest amount of work possible. Besides the mediocre main leads, we also have a female character that helps Tim get some leads on the investigation and also gets him in a certain place due to her journalism job. I don't really care to look up what her name is because her entire character is so forgettable, and I really only remember her as the journalist with the Psyduck that helps Tim, rather than anything pertaining to her character. Ironically, her Psyduck has more personality than she does, but that's probably because they ripped his personality straight from the anime. The villain is by far the worst character in the film. The film tries doing a twist villain, but it doesn't even work that well, since the only thing that makes the audience think that the young TV news guy might be evil is just because he's kind of a bit of a jerk. And even then, reasonably so, because when the female main character wanted to report on a rumor that, as far as anyone was concerned, was baseless and had no real evidence, he got mad. And then in every subsequent scene involving him, it's just a Ditto in disguise, and all he does is just kind of stand there.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
But it actually turns out to be his dad that's the bad guy. This really nice billionaire CEO type dude was actually the bad guy? Wow, that's super original that the character built as the very nice and likable guy was actually the villain, and him being the father of the character that kind of seems evil at the beginning is totally unlike another father-son pair from another Pokemon game. There's basically no indication or build-up to him being the villain. It's literally just Tim bursts into his office during the third act and suddenly it's revealed that he's the villain and that he was behind everything. Like, wow, I'm glad that instead of developing a grandiose, fleshed out villain with understandable motives and goals, you instead opted to have a twist villain where the twist wasn't even that good, and then give him the revolutionary goal of trying to turn everyone into Pokemon because Pokemon are better or something. It's really haphazard and is widely agreed to be the worst aspect of this film. You want to know how many scenes he was in before this reveal? 3. First was in the scene during the very beginning where Tim was watching an interview with him. Second was during the news broadcast where the film portrays him as being reasonable compared to his son who's kind of being a jerk in that scene. And the third scene is one where he reveals to Tim and Pikachu what actually happened during the night of the incident. All of which just kind of portrayed him as good nature and don't really hint at a greater goal. It's incredibly contrived. Sonic definitely takes the cake in terms of its characters. While they aren't mind-blowing, they're at least fun to watch and understandable. Less is more, as they say.
Round 3.
Presentation!
I think really only one more area can be examined between the two films, that being the presentation. Since these films are live-action animated hybrids, a lot of liberties had to be taken in order to mix the CG animation with the live-action footage to make it look well. This will be the smallest segment in this video since there's not a lot I have to say about it, but I did want to showcase something that Detective Pikachu does at least a little better than Sonic does. Actually, a lot better, but we'll get to that. Detective Pikachu has a ton of animated characters due to the sheer number of Pokemon there was by the time of the film's release. So there's a lot happening and a lot of scenes and a lot of Pokemon that needed the jump to a realistic setting. For the most part, I think they did it quite well. Pikachu looks great aside from the occasional odd still in this instance where his lip syncing is kind of off. Land mammals look nice and fuzzy, reptiles have nice scales, birds have feathers, and so on and so forth. Some Pokemon do look outright horrifying, but then again, these are usually Pokemon that were already regarded as kind of weird or creepy, so in that case, I guess it's fine. By far the most challenging thing the crew had to face was having it look like the Pokemon and human actors were actually in the same place. place, and actually interacting with one another. All the Pokemon react to light and shade quite well, and definitely makes the Pokemon look as if they're actually real, rather than, you know, if they were kind of chroma keyed onto the footage or something, I don't know. It looks great. The settings look quite nice. I absolutely love the neon big city vibes that Rhyme City has, especially during the night scenes. The crew at the very least managed to complement the dark story with a matching setting, so I commend them on that. Sonic, on the other hand, can kind of look unfinished at times, specifically when he's in a car. It just doesn't look like he's quite there, you know? And you notice it once you start looking at his shadows and around the edges of his model. It just doesn't exactly look right. It just falls short of being an industry standard that I would come to expect, and that's a real shame. The special effects can also look downright rough too. They honestly barely look better than something an experienced YouTube poop creator could create.
Final results!
While Detective Pikachu is pure eye candy, especially for a Pokemon fan, it overall fails to deliver a satisfying experience that one would expect from the average film and fails at trying to tell a complex narrative. While Sonic is a lighthearted film definitely aimed towards more children and families, it still manages to deliver a fun experience with lovable characters that never loses steam. With that said, I declare Sonic the winner of this battle.
The champion is Sonic!
I really feel like people are reluctant to admit that Sonic had a really good movie. No matter how many videos people make on how Sonic isn't actually that bad of a franchise, people can never let go of the prejudice that they have against the series that makes them see it as some sort of second-rate franchise that only appeals to kids and blind fans and is just a microcosm of cringeworthy, toxic fan bases. Even when the stigma is more than outdated by now. People really treat Pokemon with this reverence that only really other Nintendo franchises receive, with people having such violent love for the franchise because of the nostalgia tied to it, making them ignore the very prevalent flaws with Detective Pikachu as a film and put it on a higher pedestal than it really deserves. To many, it's a part of the illustrious Pokemon lineage, and so long as it's got Pikachu's red cheeks plastered on it, they'll automatically give it heaps of love and no second thought about it, because it reminds them of a better, happier time in their lives. But we have to look at things objectively. Pokemon is great and all, but it's not invincible, and not this perfect series that people portray it as. Ironically enough, while some may regard the series as better than Sonic, it's ironically at the same level as it now. Yeah, I said it. I don't know what really else to say, I just really like the Sonic movie. It's not the best film ever, and it's not even my favorite film, but it's definitely the best video game film as of right now, and it deserves a watch at least once. Sonic makes its goal simple and clear and achieves it well, while Detective Pikachu tries to make its goal higher than what it should reasonably be for Pokemon's first ever non-animated film, and fails by trying to be more than the sum of its parts. I also find it funny how people try to somehow put Pikachu above Sonic just because they label Sonic's movie as just another animated character meets the real world movie, like Alvin and the Chipmunks or the Smurfs, when Detective Pikachu, conceptually, is just like that too. It's just that the Pokemon are there from the start. Strip away all the dark, moody theming and just make it a fun, bright mystery adventure movie, and it'd be on the same level. But, yet again, people try to talk Pokemon as if it's bigger or more mature than it really is. And with these two films having sequels confirmed, I might just make a sequel to this video. A part of me feels like I should have maybe waited until the Mario movie came out to make this video, but I seriously doubt it'd even be on the same level as Detective Pikachu. I mean, come on, it's being made by Illumination. I hope you all enjoyed this gargantuan video. It's definitely been one I've been looking forward to making for a while, so I'll see you all in the next one, and have a great night. And take care.
It was almost too